They say every cult begins with a mirror, not one held up to the world, but to our own fears. What makes people follow madness so blindly? Why would a mother give her child poison, or a grown man surrender his life for a promise that never existed? The truth is, it's never sudden. No one wakes up one morning and says, "I'm joining a cult." It starts with something small. A seminar, a friend's recommendation, a sermon that feels right. They tell you they understand your pain. They make you feel seen in a world that doesn't notice you. That's the first hook. By the time you realize you're trapped, it's already too late. Cults don't just manipulate minds, they rewire them. They isolate you from your family, convince you the outside world is evil, and replace every doubt with devotion. Sleep deprivation, emotional exhaustion, repetition, these are their weapons. And the leaders? They study people like scientists, testing how far loyalty can go before it breaks. But behind every charismatic leader lies the same sickness, the hunger for power. Jim Jones wanted to be worshipped. Koresh wanted to be feared. Applewhite wanted to transcend death. And yet, their methods weren't unique. In fact, some of their techniques echo something far darker, something that came not from cults, but from the government itself. During the Cold War, the CIA launched a secret program known as MKUltra, a series of mind control experiments hidden behind layers of classified files. They tested LSD on civilians, hypnosis on soldiers, sensory deprivation, and psychological torture, all to see how far the human mind could be bent before it shattered. These experiments, buried for decades, accidentally gave birth to something cult leaders had been using for centuries: total psychological submission. The idea was simple. If you can break a person's sense of self, you can rebuild it in your image. That's what Jim Jones did in the jungles of Guyana. That's what Koresh did behind the walls of Waco. And it's what countless lesser-known cults did across small-town America, away from cameras, away from history. But the story doesn't end there, because the cults never truly disappeared. They just changed shape. Today, they wear new faces. They don't call themselves religions anymore. They call themselves movements, self-help groups, online communities, coaching programs. They promise enlightenment, healing, success, but the language is the same. The manipulation is the same. Only the packaging has evolved. The same psychological patterns, isolation, dependency, guilt, are now woven into influencer followings, pseudo-spiritual retreats, even corporate wellness systems. And while the leaders no longer stand in pulpits, they speak through screens, with perfect lighting, rehearsed smiles, and an audience that doesn't even realize it's being led. We've traded the jungle for the algorithm, the temple for the live stream, the prophet for the brand. But deep down, it's still the same story. A story about control. About how easily the human heart, desperate for meaning, can mistake manipulation for salvation. The truth about American cults isn't that they were rare. It is that they were inevitable. A nation built on freedom will always attract those who want to own it. Those who believe they deserve the devotion of others. Those who mistake godhood for leadership. And as long as people crave answers, as long as someone out there believes they were chosen, another cult will rise. Another voice will whisper promises of paradise. And another crowd will listen. Because the most terrifying cults aren't the ones that end in blood. They're the ones that convince you you're free, while you're still wearing the chains. They say history repeats itself, but when it comes to cults, it doesn't just repeat, it mutates. The end of the 20th century didn't mark the death of American cults. It was their rebirth. And this time, they didn't need secret compounds or hidden communes. All they needed was the internet. In the past, cult leaders had to find you. Now, you find them with a single click. They whisper through podcasts, encrypted chats, anonymous message boards, and live stream sermons that sound like truth wrapped in poetry. They don't tell you to join anything. They just invite you to wake up. And people do by the millions. It starts the same way it always has. Someone lonely, lost, searching for meaning in a world that feels colder every year. They stumble onto a voice that says, "You're not crazy. You've been lied to." And just like that, they're hooked. Modern cults don't always need religion. They use ideology, nationalism, self-improvement, or even vague spiritualism. The leader doesn't need a pulpit, just a camera and a following. They know how to weaponize outrage, how to drip-feed belief until it becomes obsession. In the 1800s, men like Joseph Smith built entire religions from visions and gold plates. In the 1900s, Jim Jones and David Koresh promised salvation through death. But in the 2000s, the promise changed. Now it's about belonging, power, the illusion of control. One of the most disturbing truths about cult psychology is that it thrives in uncertainty, and America, especially today, is a breeding ground for uncertainty. Economic instability, political chaos, social alienation. It's the perfect storm for new prophets to rise. The same techniques the old cults used, isolation, emotional triggers, moral superiority, are now digital. Algorithms feed you what you already believe. Communities form around paranoia, and slowly, reality becomes negotiable. We like to think we'd never fall for it. We imagine ourselves too rational, too modern. But look closely, because cult logic isn't confined to compounds anymore. It's in your social feeds, your news headlines, your motivational reels. Every time someone says, "Only we know the truth," the cycle begins again. Some of the most recent cult-like movements never even called themselves cults. They called themselves patriots, truth seekers, light workers, coaches. But the psychology is identical. A charismatic figure claiming divine or secret knowledge. A loyal base willing to abandon family and reason for the cause. And a slow erosion of individuality until obedience feels like faith. The ugliest part? It's not always about belief anymore. Sometimes it's about profit. Some cult leaders sell salvation for a subscription fee. They promise enlightenment and deliver addiction. America's past is littered with men and women who convinced others to surrender their will. But today, the danger isn't one man in a robe. It's a culture that rewards manipulation, that celebrates charisma over truth, that mistakes confidence for wisdom. The real modern cult isn't hidden in the woods. It's hiding in plain sight. In your feed, in your entertainment, in your politics. Every time someone tells you to stop thinking and just believe, the shadow of the old prophet smiles. Because the American dream has always had a dark twin, the dream of control. And for every generation, there will be someone who tries to seize it. Someone who learns the oldest truth of all. People don't follow gods because they are divine. They follow them because they promise certainty in a world that refuses to give it. So maybe the question isn't, why did people follow Jim Jones? Or, how could anyone believe Koresh? Maybe the question is this: when everything around us feels uncertain, how long before we start looking for our own savior, too? And when that moment comes, will we even realize that we've joined a cult?